Introducing Nose to Tail, a podcast where we explore the world of aviation lifecycle solutions, insights, and more. Presented by Jet Midwest.
Welcome back to the Nose to Tail podcast. I'm Patrick Kraus, your host, COO of Jet Midwest. I'm here with JP. How you doing, JP?
Fantastic. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you joining us. We've worked on some projects throughout our career that have intersected our paths, so it's great for you to be able to join us. Maybe let's start with your past and how you got into the aviation world and really what you're doing today.
Okay, so I went to aeronautical engineering school in university. I graduated from there in Bogota, in Colombia. Then I started working with the Airbus at the moment representatives in Colombia. I went there for 1 year. It was like a commercial assistant. Then I had the opportunity to join Avianca Airlines. I started in procurement. Then I moved to AOG a little bit. And when I was in AOG, I moved to fleet management engineering. Then totally a roller coaster because that's where I learned a lot of things that way I'm doing now. So after that, I moved to LATAM Cargo. I was responsible of reliability from the cargo side and also some aspects of engineering. And then because of a project there, I was assigned a project to transition some aircraft. And when I did, I knew a company that was in the consultancy services. So they asked me if I wanted or was interested to join them. So I moved into the consultancy business. I went with them 8 years, and after that, SGI contacted me, and I'm on board with SGI almost 3 years in December this year.
Now, for some of our listeners, obviously there's a lot of our listeners who maybe couldn't tell you what a technical review of an asset, whether it's an engine or an airplane, what that even looks like. So maybe you can give us a flavor of what it is and why it's so important when you think about maybe lease returns or transactional, somebody buying an aircraft from, if Avianca had the aircraft brand new A320, and they're going to transition that when they're completed with their service, maybe help people understand what that technical job really entails.
Yeah, sure. So actually with Avianca, it was the old days because we managed to redeliver the 75s, the 76, the MD-83s, even some Fokker 50s and Fokker 100s. So it's old school.
I remember those airplanes.
Exactly. And those were not new aircraft for Avianca. Those were used or mid-life aircraft for Avianca. So it was a little more challenging, because the history of those aircraft was kind of not back to birth, as I can say. So it was very interesting on how we learned through the lessors on how we delivered, because Avianca, they didn't have a department for redelivering or transitioning aircraft. Actually, they took some engineers to do it, but then they realized that they needed a dedicated department to do it. So we learned the hard way, I can say, but we did learn with very good, I can say, teachers in this moment that will be the lessors, So we learned the hard way, and we learned how to do it, and we started building teams all around the aircraft needs. There were the structures guys, engine guys, components guys. So we started understanding what will be actually the dynamics around the transition of an aircraft. So it was really cool, actually. The new aircraft, yes, in other projects as a consultant, I did it. But my origin is with mid-life aircraft, just redelivering, actually. That's it.
Yeah, and that was really, I think, when our paths crossed for the first time. That was the Wayback Machine. So Jet Midwest and Avianca have been good colleagues of each other, both customer and vendor.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it started with the F-100, the Fokker aircraft. And when we started tearing those aircraft down fairly early, 2004, 5, 6, and we were one of the first spares people. And I remember when your team was purchasing those aircraft from American.
Yes,
and we would head down to Tulsa to visit with the on-site reps who were managing the purchase agreement and the heavy maintenance on them and the deliveries. And those were good times. And the Fokker 50s and the MD-80s, it was kind of the same thing. Like we worked with you guys, and then we purchased those Fokker 100s from you, some of them. I think they're when you guys phased them out. So you got to touch those records on both sides.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, people don't really understand sometimes, I think, how complicated the records can be. We're working on a project recently, and there was a super sensitive portion of the aircraft because this airline wanted to to do some mods to it, and they're like, hey, we need to have the the damage mapping or the repair mapping for the aircraft. And a lot of people would talk about technical, think, well, that's back to birth on an engine or on the fuselage, tracking cycles, AD statuses. But there's a lot more to it, and with all of the changes and modifications that happen sometimes at the airlines, depending on how those programs are built, it's kind of hard to track everything.
Yeah.
And again, here's a client that's saying, hey, we have to have this repair mapping because if there's repairs in these certain areas, then it's going to change our engineering that we're working to do this mod. And so there's obviously clearly some sensitivity there, so that may disqualify an entire airplane, and you'd want to have that mapping done prior to purchasing the aircraft.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of having to figure it out once you get it. So it's important for guys like you to make sure that salvages a deal and say, nope, I've got that. Here it is.
Exactly.
Or here's the LOPA changes when we went from a 343 to a 252 or whatever configuration, and there's electrical impacts and all these different things I never knew.
Yeah.
As a teardown guy, I definitely took with a grain of salt the delivery documents because unless it related to the landing gear, the engines, or the APU, I kind of didn't care because I didn't know I needed to. And when we're breaking down airplanes, a lot of those other pieces aren't super important. And now that our careers in our asset management program has changed, now we spend a tremendous amount of time doing exactly what you're doing for SGI with our pre-buys and then obviously post-buys and then our deliveries to our customers as we manage more fleet as opposed to just being that pure dismantle guy who just takes a chop saw to everything he gets. So you've been at SGI for a couple of years now.
Yes, 2.5.
And what's really maybe the core competency or maybe that part of SGI that makes them shine in the marketplace?
I think we bring the experience of a very talented team, I can say. Actually, we focus in two areas. One is going to be the airframe, the other one is the engines. We have a very capable team of engines, head of guys in Europe, from Danilo Colombo. Actually, he's my colleague. He leads the engine team. And also from the airframe side, we're divided. Actually, SGI has headquarters in Amsterdam. We have an office in Tampa run by Emiliano Ciani. We have an office also in Singapore run by Francesco Baccarani. And there are heads of China, from India. In Europe, we have presence in Dublin, of course, in Amsterdam. I report to the U.S. office, but I live in Bogota, but I running all the Americas, so I'm heavily involved. Now that you are touching base regarding how you start building the records, is very interesting because the first time we did it, I remember my old days in Avianca, we were asked to provide a mapping to a lessor. And I remember that we were controlling around in 757, 767, perhaps 50 repairs for a 12, 15-year operated aircraft. And when we delivered that to the lessor, we went with him actually to the aircraft. And we just discovered that we delivered like 350 repairs. So that was really funny. We learned the hard way, as I said. Also, I remember the first aircraft, the 767, the first ones, the back-to-birth trace for the landing gear was not a must-have for the lessors. So then it turns out that they need actually to have the back-to-birth trace for the landing gear as well. It's a major component. So all this history and all these people around myself, of course, and related to these projects, came in with me, this GI, and that's why we have a very good talent and track record people that can manage transitions. We manage and shop visits on the side of the engines. We are in a secondment currently with a customer, and just managing the shop visit, of course, with their blessing on behalf of them. We have midterm inspections nowadays that the transitions are kind of cool at the moment, but we also are doing midterm inspections, LMIs, everything from that side for lessors, which are mainly our clients, and of course owners of assets. But I see an increase in the engine side. But all of this experience and everything we do is because of the people we work with. And that's what brings SGI, to top of the line services for aviation. Basically, that's it. We have very good talent.
Now, you said you're engine heavy in a lot of what you're doing these days, and I think that's probably a market condition. Is it the narrow body engines, the wide body? Is it because of shop visit challenges? Help us maybe understand why the market has shifted and what products are really shifting in your mind.
Actually, we work with both narrow body engines and wide body engines. We work with everything, every single model. We have the track record and experience for people to do this. And actually, additionally to that, they are doing the transition, so they have experience in transitioning engines as well. But nowadays, we see that the interest of getting engines, not even airframes, just engines to put it on aircraft, and because of the problems that are evident, in our industry, they need to keep flying and they need the engine. So there's a preference, of course, for engines at the moment. And we are very eager to help our clients. We are called, I can tell you, we have an exponential request or compared. When I entered SGI, I remember that the Americas was not something that they were really in doing in the company, but I step in and I remember that we started rolling the ball on the engine. So we see that there is a tendency, to transition engines perhaps more. Trading engines everyone is asking for an engine. What is available? Even the engines that are, of course, ready to overhaul or major repairs. Even the LLPs and everything are very interested of other companies, to make one engine out of different engines. So it's like a roller coaster, I can say. It's been thrill experience.
Yeah, I think for the most part, a lot of the marketplace, they're starving for cycles, starving for engines to go on wing, and there's certainly a supply chain impact. I think that's, I don't want to say it's a true cause effect, but it's a part of that cause. Maybe there's some pressure relief with some retirements, maybe in 12 to 18 months, they're going to start seeing some of those retirements, and maybe that will help relieve a little bit of the stress of the bubble. But then that will also increase the workload for guys like me and you for how do we get these aircraft purchased? How do we get them transacted and make sure that the records flow across works? I'm curious, is there a particular IT solution, or do you have some synergy across what you do that really helps you guys be more successful in being able to deliver consistent packages for your teams?
We are trying to implement some technologies. That's something that each of us have nowadays. You need to implement and go through technology to help your work and your life. It's getting easier because of it. So normally what we are doing, we're trying to develop tools that we normally use in our day-to-day basis, just to make those apply to what we do, and to increase perhaps the progress on how we approach different projects, or perhaps just to get the same quality using technology of what we do. But yes, definitely we need to include technology all around this. We need it. And we implement it now in SGI. We're using some softwares. We have like an internal plan within the company on which we are interested on developing this to help the customer, to help our crew, to resolve better, and with keeping the same quality, of course. Because in the engine side, and also with the major components, the back-to-birth is something that is a must-have, And if you don't have it, it will reduce the cost of the asset a lot. So it's something that it's very precise, I can say, but it's something that, of course, with technology, we need to make like a good merge between both, and help each other. Technology will help us definitely, but you still need the guy with the knowledge.
Yeah, certainly in the future of what we all do, I think there's probably some of the AI that we're going to have to learn how to harness the right way and put into place, and find a way for that to be effective for us, so that you can speed up or maybe even identify where we have some challenges. It's certainly something we're exploring for just our internal processes. How can we do things a little faster, a little more efficiently, and make sure that maybe there's a step inside of our process chain that we don't skip. If you skip a step of process review inside of a landing gear, back to birth packet, and you miss one piece, and you get to the end and don't realize it, that obviously that's a challenge when that customer goes to look at it and go, hey, I don't have back to birth here. In fact, that's the wrong serial number on that, piece. I'm excited for that technology, and I don't know how far you guys are in exploring it, but I certainly think it has a place in our businesses, and it's up to us to see what that looks like in the future.
And you can tailor it, because you know how to do the role, and you can tailor the technology, to make the result that you're expecting. Yeah. So that's very important as well.
Absolutely.
We'll continue this discussion on the next episode of Nose to Tail, a podcast presented by Jet Midwest. Don't forget to please like and subscribe to our channel